Oh,
Oh, yes. Sorry. I'm going to record this.
I figured.
Doesn't matter. I'm Jeff McLean, producer here at WAT 600 Side in Knoxville. Nice to meet you.
It's very nice to meet you. Thank you for inviting me on. I appreciate you.
No problem. So, yeah, we're just working our way through election coverage. We're going to have a little bit from Chuck Fleischman, a little bit from you. I mean, it's not going to like mix together. It's going to be like boop and boop. So, but we're, the third district touches us too as well. So obviously we're keeping track of it, and just thought we'd see what you had to say.
Yeah, awesome.
So you ready? Can we get started?
Yeah. How about it?
I guess first of all, you're up against a incumbent, several round incumbent. Who are you? Who are you? How would you introduce yourself to the voters?
Sure. Well, I'm a normal person. I work a full-time hourly job. My name is Meg Gorman. I was raised here in East Tennessee. This is my home. And this is something that's very deeply personal to me. I didn't decide to run because I had some grand, political dreams or goals. It was really that I sat back and watched for a long time as the people of this district went unnoticed. They weren't listened to. They were not represented. And that goes for people from both major parties. It's not just one party who is failing to be adequately represented. I hear all the time from Republican voters how they feel like they've been let down because they have a representative who doesn't show up for the people. So, go ahead.
Let's talk about that. I mean, because you mentioned, the people. This is, this third district has sent a Republican to Congress since I think it's 1994, and it's I guess what we would broadly call a red district. What Democrats, are talking about headwinds with President Biden's popularity numbers, gas prices, inflation, just some general dissatisfaction with the current, the team that's in charge right now. How can you overcome that and maybe convince, not just every Democrat to get out there, but pull some other folks from the other side or folks from off the sideline?
Well, the same thing I tell people when I meet them, which is I'm running as a Democrat, but I'm not running to represent Democrats. I'm running to represent the people of Tennessee's third district. I don't care if someone is a Democrat or Republican or independent. I think everyone deserves real, meaningful representation by someone whose vote isn't for sale. And right now, none of us is getting that. And when I go out into the district and I talk with people, I find that a lot of people don't want to be, lumped into this category. They don't want to be forced into a mold. They are confident in who they are, and they're comfortable saying that they're independent. They don't want to agree with any one party 100% of the time. And I think when we approach it in that way, because I feel similarly, I'm not going to vote blindly with one party 100% of the time, because I think to agree to do that is a great disservice to the people of the district. And people generally agree with that. I think that's what they want. And that is what I'm running to give them.
And I'm sure people out there are going to want, I mean, there's just a lot of kitchen table pocketbook issues that people want to see something done about. I guess primarily inflation. So what would you do from DC to bring down inflation?
This is a tricky one, because much like we see with climate change or really anything else where we're failing to be proactive, when we do not act quickly enough, it is often, I won't say impossible to undo the damage, but it is way more difficult to mitigate the damage long term. There is no one perfect solution, but what I do think we need to be focused on are the things that we need to hold on to, like our basic foundational rights, largely our democracy, because without that, we will not have a say in how our future goes. We will not have a say in who represents us. And I get that right now we are all feeling the effects of inflation. It is very real. I think personally, I think the Fed should have acted sooner. In addressing it, we knew that when we pump money into the economy, it is going to be a result. We also know that the alternative was allowing people to go without homes, go without food, when they were already struggling during the middle of a global pandemic. So, in terms of providing resources for people during a global pandemic, I think we did the right thing. I just think that we were a little slow to respond in a way that could have prevented a lot of this. Um, so I'm not sure that that answers your answers your question,
It
but put
does.
simply, I don't think that there is a single quick fix, but I do think that this is being used as a distraction because people in charge know that we are feeling it, and I count myself in that. I am an hourly worker. I notice when I go to fill up my tank. I notice when I buy groceries. So I feel it too, but I can't allow that to distract me from the really major issues here. Like if we lose our democracy, none of this other stuff matters because we will no longer be able to make decisions for ourselves.
Well, I think what we seem to have heard from people is that they trust the elections in their community primarily. They're pretty confident with the people that they know, the election workers, the poll workers, but for some reason, whether they just whatever the evidence shows or doesn't show, they just believe that there is some malfunction out there with the way our leaders are chosen. What would you say to reassure them?
Well, I think first we can't fault people who are believing what they are told by people who are in positions of authority. I do not think that that reflects poorly on the general public. I think it reflects poorly on people who are in positions of authority who are spreading misinformation. Um, and so I think what we need to focus on is coming together in politics, Republicans, Democrats, everyone, in finding a way to rebuild trust, find common ground, no matter how narrow that may be, and going from there. And I know that is a long and drawn out process. In terms of talking with people one on one, I think just letting people be heard, it's a big one. I've worked with the public my whole adult life. I've worked in public facing jobs. I've worked with people. Um, and the most valuable thing that I've learned about leadership is that you have to be willing to listen to people with an open mind, even if you don't necessarily agree with them. You have to be willing to understand and make an effort to understand where they're coming from. So I don't think there's a single solution for every person, but I think that's going to look differently, and a lot of it starts with listening.
Another thorny issue that's out there, and especially in the last, I don't know, year and a half, we've seen is immigration. Your website mentions you would like to make immigration safe, legal, and realistic, but abolish immigration and customs enforcement. So, some extent, the issue of illegal immigration has been pushed in the last run up to the elections that we're coming up on. But there is also more and more fentanyl busts, and there are lots of people coming across the southern border. How does a country without immigration and customs enforcement keep fentanyl out, or who knows who out?
So I think the biggest piece here is in any population, we can find a sample size and we can say, or we can find an example, something anecdotal, and say, well, out of these 10 families, these parents are failing their children, and therefore all of them are failing their children. So if we're saying, hey, when we allow people to come into our country, this is happening, we are drawn to the conclusion that it is everyone doing this, that it is an overwhelming thing, that anyone coming into our country is bringing things that are not desirable. And that's not what's happening. I will not argue with you. Yes, we absolutely do have a drug issue. But we also have a humanitarian crisis. And what we need to do is allocate our resources so that instead of people having to wait decades for citizenship, having to wait years or having to wait months on the border, that we are putting our resources into processing, that we are providing more legal aid, that we are providing mediators, that we have people who are translating, people who can actually help the process run more smoothly, because it's also going to be a lot easier when we do not have massive populations all together. So if we're able to process people coming in more smoothly, then it will make the rest of it fall in line. It's a really easy thing to attack because it creates an us against them sort of situation. But I'd be willing to bet that most Americans who you speak with, when you ask them about the people in their lives who they know who have immigrated here, they'll speak very favorably about them. It's because we are a nation of immigrants. I mean, the diversity that we have in our country is one of our greatest strengths. It also has the ability to pull us apart if we let it. And that's not something that is led by the American people. That's not a representation of how the American people feel. It's fear mongering. And so it is tricky. And much like we talked about the other things, there's no one perfect solution, but I do think a humane approach and a focus on what we want the outcome to be, which is we want people to be safe. And when people want to be a part of this country, when they want to live here, work here, raise their families here, pay their taxes here, why would we possibly want to turn that away? That sounds like a pretty great thing to me.
Another issue you raised on your website is abortion, and obviously we saw Roe versus Wade essentially overturned in Tennessee. The law on the books says that life effectively begins at conception, and there's realistically no way to have an abortion in Tennessee without a rather complicated process wherein the doctor has to defend their decision.
Yes.
But this is also a state that, anticipating it, or maybe not anticipating the extent of this change, the people voted to change the state constitution to specifically say that there is no protection for abortion in the state of Tennessee. With that in mind, how do you sell a right to an abortion to the voters around your district? Because I don't know that even if there was some sort of national limit or some sort of compromise coming out of DC that would allow some portion of Roe to be codified, the Tennessee law, it essentially says no abortions. And how do you sell that?
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of people who are impacted by this. It's not just women having abortions. A lot of it is care for incomplete miscarriage. And that is something that a lot of people experience. We saw recently there is a woman who was sent on a 6-hour ambulance ride to North Carolina to receive the services she needed. And the doctor who sent her there said that she was afraid that she may not hear from her because she would have died on the way. And, by the time she arrived at her destination, she was having kidney failure. She was at this incredible risk, but the physician could not perform the needed procedure because she would have and could have been charged with a felony. And much like you said, there in the state of Tennessee, there is no exception for rape or incest or the life of the mother. And that means that doctors have to decide in a few seconds often, is this something that I can do, or am I going to end up in jail? And that is an impossible place to find yourself as a doctor. I'd imagine, at least. I don't know how you feel about it, but I can't imagine being in that position. I know that my grandmother, my mom's mom, she was pro-life her entire life. I mean, and that extended to any living thing. She would not kill a cockroach. She once moved a wasp nest outside after they had their babies in her house. She refused to kill them. She loved every living thing. And she had to have an abortion. And without it, she could have died. And under the current ban that we have in place in Tennessee, I doubt that I would be here today. I doubt that my mother would be here today. And she didn't think of it as an abortion because at that time it was just the doctor doing what needed to be done to make sure that the pregnant person did not die. I have found, talking with people, a lot of people have experienced these things. A lot of people have experienced late term miscarriage, spontaneous abortion, which is something that occurs naturally. And now people are sent home to have to pass that on their own or wait until there's no longer a heartbeat detected. But that can be the difference between life and death. When a woman's water breaks, the contents of her uterus need to leave her body. And if that does not happen rapidly enough, she can go into sepsis and die. It is a very real threat, and an alarming number of people who I know, including a lot of Republican voters, a lot of conservative voters, a lot of pro-life voters, have found themselves in these situations before where they have received medical care, treatments, procedures that under this new ban, they would not be able to receive.
Another issue, and this is, I personally think it's a connected, but I noticed you used the term pregnant people. I feel or sense there's a bit of a cultural divide here too, because we seem to be at a point where political, social, and cultural issues are forcing some tough decisions about which side you're on, whether something has an impact to your life directly or not, like transgender issues. And in red state, Republican, 3rd District, Tennessee, that's one of those headwinds too. How do you square that with the voters that you're gonna try to get on your side, or that you're talking to, that a 21st century America with a Democrat in DC isn't going to be something that they're afraid of, some strange world where a lot of the old definitions just aren't around? What do you tell them?
I mean, it's about people. It is not a matter of choosing one group of people over another group of people, or prioritizing one group of people over another group of people. It is a matter of working for everyone, trying to pass legislation that is going to help people across the board and not hurt people. And letting them know that there are people who want to represent them, who care, who actually care. And it is not choosing, again, it is not choosing any one group over another. It is, I want to help everyone in this district. I do not consider any group to be more or less worthy of healthcare or more or less worthy of human rights. So when we talk like that, just as people, again, people agree. I think we all agree that the role of government should be either help or get out of the way. And if you're not doing one of those two things, something's wrong. So yeah, I think that's a big piece of it. People just don't really want to notice the government unless it is in a way that is beneficial. And when we focus on that, when we focus on the fact that a lot of people do have diverse friend groups, families, you know, coworker groups, classes and school. And they're able to make a lot of personal exceptions for their feelings when they do have negative feelings about certain groups. And I think when we can go from there, and realize that a lot of it is, you know, misplaced anger. And I think that's just human nature. It's easy to want to target that anger at someone or at a group when we're frustrated. And we do have a lot of reasons to be frustrated because we, you know, we have been let down in a lot of ways.
And well, I guess my final question here, and it's not. I know you mentioned that you are running as a Democrat, but there's a certain level of independence you're bringing along the way. A charge that's been leveled against Democrats right now has a lot to do with generational divides. That the Democratic Party is led by folks of a past or a further past generation, whether that's Nancy Pelosi or President Biden. And yet there are energetic Democrats out there, young Democrats out there. How do you, is there a need for a generational change within the Democratic Party?
I think there's a need for a generational change overall. Not necessarily because it needs to be a transfer of power from old to young, but I just think that we need more movement within our government overall. These are not created to be these like careers for people. Politics shouldn't be a career position where people are like sitting for 20 30 years. And it should be that people are going, they're serving their communities, they're coming back. And I think that we find that, I'm sure there are exceptions, but often incumbency, having the same people for long periods of time, do not benefit constituents. I think another piece of it too is having people coming in who are not just willing to work with people from different backgrounds with different views, but who actually seek that collaboration and who seek that creativity and who seek that I guess teamwork. And I think that's a big piece of it. And that's actually, to me, is one of the biggest issues, is the idea that we can't work together or we're going to show weakness. We are strongest when we're together. And we need people who value trust and rebuilding trust and understand that when we have two parties where people are largely voting party line, period, they're not looking to come together. The people who are losing are the American people. That is who it hurts.
All right. Well, that's really all I've got. We'll keep following along, and obviously we'll. You're based out of Chattanooga, am I right?
I am, yeah.
Okay. We have an affiliate there, WTVC. So election night, that's probably who would be in contact with you. But
Okay.
we can get whatever they're able to get, and we'll, let us know next time you're around.
Yeah, thank you so much. If you want to learn more about me, my website is meg2022.com. You can read more about my platform there. You can reach out and contact me if you have any questions.
All righty. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate you.